Trump, we all know, can be very charming in private. And in this moment, he was taken with Mamdani, and I think respected the way he built his coalition, the way he used social media, the fact that he won.
You know, again, nobody will like this on either side. They're both very charming men. They really are. One-on-one, they're both very charming men, and so they got together. And, yeah, game respects charm respects charm.
That's analysis by Morning Joke Scarborough on the meeting between President Trump and Mamdani the Commie, who is also a jihadi. Puts him in real solid with the Democrat Party. Well, very good and happy American Monday to you. Welcome back. Hope you had a great American weekend. No jihadis ruining anything for you or other Democrats. I don't know if you guys took up World Toilet Day on Friday. It was Friday. World Toilet Day was Friday. And the United Nations took up World Toilet Day. They don't know quite what to do about it, but they tell us billions and billions of people don't have, how do they describe it? Proper sanitation, I think. World Toilet Day, they said giving everybody in the world a toilet wouldn't solve the problem. They also didn't say that it still might help. It might be good. A very good morning to you and welcome. We are at 888-630-9625. And I also found that Swalwell, Eric Swalwell, the Democrat congressman from California, who has been an operative of a Chinese intelligence honeypot officer named Fang Fang for years and years now. He is Fang Fang's great prize. She wears a crown at all of the Chinese intelligence gatherings because she has Swalwell in the bag and took him from a city council seat in California to the U.S. House of Representatives and the Intelligence Committee because the Democrats are communists, basically. And, they had, who was it? Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, California Senator, San Francisco, had a Chinese intelligence operative on her staff for almost 20 years in California. And the FBI knew about it but didn't tell her because, why would they? So we've got that. But Swalwell, he is, what's his latest, Michael? He wants everybody in the United States to be able to vote because they love democracy, by phone. You should be able to use your phone to vote because there are all kinds of ways to steal elections and to steal votes and to corrupt everything. And the Democrat Party, they're going to find every dang one of them before they're done. Isn't that great? Swalwell wants vote by phone. Vote by phone. Because having the mail-out ballots and the ballot harvesting and not enough. You got to have every illegal alien that has an Obama phone will be able to vote for the Democrats. Eric Swalwell is the third world, and he's a Chinese communist intelligence shill and operative because Fang Fang, did she do a great job with him. She's the king of Chinese intelligence, no doubt about it. So we've got that. And we just opened with some Mamdani and President Trump meeting. Mamdani the Commie. And he's not one of the good guys, that's for sure. Mamdani says he still thinks Trump is a fascist, even after their chummy White House meeting. I've said it in the past. I say it today. Rah, rah. And then he ate children on the end of big forks. He had bigger oversized forks, and he's eating children because he's a ghoul. But Mamdani's father, this is a good, his father, the hatred of the Jews, the genocidal racism goes way back in the family. Mamdani's father, who lives where? He lives in Uganda, where Idi Amin ate people as a delicacy because he was a cannibal and the leader of the country of Uganda, and the Democrats loved him even at the time. Mamdani's father, who lives in Uganda, called Holocaust survivors, quote, today's perpetrators. They're today's those dang Jews. They're really the perpetrator, having a civilized country in the middle of beep, beep, all that good stuff. Yes, sir. So we've got that, got to update you on some of that. Also, Hakeem Jeffries, he's a communist, and he was mentored by his uncle, Professor Leonard Jeffries when he was growing up, who's also a virulent anti-Semite. See this emerging as the Democrats, kind of it's the backbone of the Democrat Party today, anti-Semitism. Hakeem Jeffries goes full Obama spin when asked about Jeffrey Epstein donating to his campaign. And who boy, that's the headline here, and who boy. We have that for you because, Hakeem Jeffries is really a piece of work. And the Democrats, they're mentally ill and violently, criminally insane and dangerous and all that. Speaking of which, Jasmine Crockett, remember, she's out there saying, oh, yeah, and Jeffrey Epstein gave to this guy and gave to that guy. Because Jeffrey Epstein, there's a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon, a doctor in New York who gave money to Republicans. And so Jasmine Crockett said that it's not the child molester Democrat, Jeffrey Epstein. It's a different Jeffrey Epstein. But the Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, Long Island neurosurgeon, who Representative Democrat Jasmine Crockett of Texas suggested could be the notorious sex trafficker, told the New York Post about his master stroke of revenge he could dish out to the loudmouth congresswoman who dragged his good name through the mud. And here's his plan for the Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, who's a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon. He said, I think that I should contribute money to Jasmine Crockett and then let everybody know that she also took money from Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, it's not the dead psycho child molester Democrat Party fundraiser guy. We got all that, but kind of fun. But the doctor, he's a neurosurgeon, he's a smart guy. He said, I'm going to contribute money to her campaign and then direct people to the websites that tell you who donated to her. Hey, Jeffrey Epstein donated to her years after he died. The Democrats are fine with that, too, because Chicago and all that. Oh, Jen Psaki is a little bit back in the news, too. You know, with her gasoline-colored hair, she's the Colonel Klebb from, what James Bond movie was that? That was From Russia with Love, where they had the Soviet lesbian Colonel KGB with the spike in her shoe. That was Colonel Klebb. Jen Psaki accuses Trump administration of building Kremlin-esque White House press corps full of sycophants. That is too funny, isn't it? These people, they're the dumbest people on earth. It's almost unbelievable. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. I'm sorry, after 4 years of, what kind of ice cream is that? And can I help you drag your beach chair across the sand? Honestly. Hey, is that your bicycle you fell over on?
Mr. Biden, what flavor did you get?
Chocolate chip.
And Jen Psaki, who was the press secretary and is now an anchor woman on a national network, NBC network. And then it's so good to be a Democrat. You're just accustomed to having sycophants all around you, acting as your horse holders. Jen Psaki accuses Trump administration of building Kremlin-esque White House press corps full of sycophants. Really? Has Donald Trump ever gotten a question equal to, Mr. President, what kind of ice cream did you get? No. The White House press corps, some of them may self-immolate before the second term is up. Isn't that amazing? Womp, womp, womp. So I got that. And Jen Psaki accuses the Trump administration of Kremlin-esque. How absurd. Womp, womp. And I actually went, when I saw this over the weekend, went and pulled a couple of Joe Biden press conferences. And, Joe Biden press conference, questions raise eyebrows. This is Newsweek, no less. The questions were such suck-up questions that even Newsweek had to put in their headline that the questions were so pathetic, so suck-up, so Kremlin-esque, so Soviet-style bootlick that even Newsweek magazine had to say the questions raised eyebrows. Just amazing. And then you remember Joe Biden, where he had the scripted questions ahead of time at the press conference. It was his first press conference ever or something like that. And they show the Biden scripted question scandal shows how lefty media helped cloak his incompetence. And you may remember that he had a list with the names of the reporters that he was to go to in what order, and he already had the answers written out to the questions that they dutifully submitted to the White House in advance because they're all Democrat bootlicks. They'll spend the weekend naked together in the hot tub. These people, the scripted questions. Remember, and he had pictures of the reporters on his cheat cards because he didn't know who they were. He didn't know their names. So they put their names, their questions, their answers, their pictures on the card. And this clown, Colonel Klebb with a spike in her shoe, Jen Psaki, has the temerity, the mendacity to say, that's right, I'm Big Daddy, the mendacity to say that the Trump White House is building a Kremlin-esque press corps full of sycophants? Good Lord, shave your tongue and get back to me, Jen Psaki. Just appalling. Biden's scripted question scandal shows how leftist media helped cloak his incompetence. And Biden interviewer says White House fed her questions. President still made gaffes. That's a separate interview, separate story. But when you're a Democrat, everything is different. And then CNN, much later, the press finally got its chance to question Biden, and the president emerged mostly unscathed. That's like mostly peaceful riots while they're burning your city down. Mostly unscathed. He got rolled right over. He looked like a buffoon and a moron. But the CNN headline tries to clean it up for him because they've already shaved their tongues. Aren't they something? Man, oh, man, I am telling you. Also got a great one here out of Twitchy. Oh, damn, is the headline. Molly Hemingway drops Jake Tapper on his head for whining about Trump calling out sedition. Sedition, you know, because the Democrats in Congress, the Senate and the House, calling for the U.S. military to rise up against the president. And because illegal orders, they can't follow illegal orders. Everybody in the military knows that you can't follow illegal orders. You're under orders. It's a standing order to not follow illegal orders. Everybody knows that. You don't even have to serve in the military to know that. But the Democrats out there firebombing the world because they're just mentals. But amazing, amazing stuff. And we've got all these illegal aliens and Somalis, too. You know, the Somalis are creating a breakaway republic in Minnesota. I was thinking Mogadishu, Minnesota. Another four. They're both four-syllable M words. Mogadishu and Minnesota there. Hey, it's not the Moog, but we can ruin it anyway. Trump says he's ending temporary deportation protections for Somalis in Minnesota. See, decades ago, somebody said, oh, the poor Somalis, they live in a total beep hole country. We have to give them special protected status to come to the United States. And then they form a new jihad in Minnesota, of all places. Used to be famous for being the nicest place. You know, the line is Minnesota nice. Minnesota nice. It's Mary Tyler Moore. You might just make it after all. And now it's Mogadishu. And it's starting to smell like Mogadishu, too. That's not good. But the temporary deportation status, as is so often the case, goes on for decades and decades. And it doesn't matter if you're part of Al-Shabaab, you know, or radical Islamic. Oh, yeah, and it turns out, actually, that they are sending money to Al-Shabaab by the millions of dollars. And it's taxpayer money because the Democrats are helping to make things better everywhere you go. But Trump ending the temporary protective status for Somalis who've had this temporary status for a lifetime now. But never mind that. And Minnesota taxpayer funds allegedly linked to Al-Shabaab terror group via fraud. Well, you couldn't do it on the up and up, so naturally you've got to do it by fraud. But the Somali, they call it a community. The Somali Jihad in Minnesota, they've been stealing millions and millions of dollars and sending the money to these individuals in Somalia who are it's the ISIS, the Al-Qaeda of the Horn of Africa, and Al-Shabaab is the name of the terrorist group. And the Somalis in Minnesota have been taking millions, stealing, let's go ahead and say it, millions and millions of tax dollars and funding a radical Islamic jihadi group in Mogadishu. And the Democrats applaud this because they're demented. They're insane. And there was a great moment. The police chief in Minneapolis apologized profusely for saying that there are a lot of Somali gangs in the city that commit a lot of crimes. And he said it, and it's true, so naturally he had to apologize. Isn't that great? Also in Islamic news, look what I've done to the clock. In Tampa, Florida, there are, I guess, 3 guys. It looks like they're going to be charged with felony hate crimes because they went to a group of Muslim men praying at pray time, and they taunted them with bacon, because everybody knows bacon is delicious. Everybody wants to eat bacon, but you can't, if you're halal. And so University of South Florida at Tampa, and I love this headline, Christian supremacist. He's, I don't even know what that means. Christian supremacist content creator mock spit and wave bacon at praying Muslims. See, that's a thing about there. And now the police file hate crime charges against 3 men involved in Muslim student harassment case. Well, they didn't kidnap anyone and decapitate them on video, if that's what you're talking about. But isn't that great? So, well, we've got a few things. Those are a few things that we've got. Got a former TV anchor also committing fraud, millions of dollars, stealing millions and millions, because former TV news anchor, nice woman, looks like a nice lady, $63 million. And you'll never guess, it's COVID money. Isn't that great? Because the Democrats. And you'll be shocked to learn that marijuana sales that in Evanston, Illinois, just north of Chicago, they were going to use to pay reparations to black people. The marijuana sales are not keeping up with the reparations payments. So I don't know, they're going to have to start charging more for pot or something like that. They're trying to fix it. Candace Owens, what a sad situation that is. Amazing stuff. And stealing your identity to steal money. It's an American tradition, thanks to the Democrats. We're at 888-630-9625. And radical extremist left-wing Democrat House member Al Green, not the great singer, but a dumb member of Congress. He's stealing one of my ideas that I've had for a decade or more. I want to share that with you, but it's half-baked. He proves how dumb he is again. Let's grab a quick phone call, Michael. Let's go to George calling from Jacksonville, Florida. Jorge, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, George.
I also grew up in Winnetka, but some years later I lived in Maine, and the Somalis were also brought into the Twin Cities of Lewiston and Auburn, Maine. It was the Clinton administration, some brainchild of theirs.
Yes, it was. You're right. They were going to save the world and make it better because we can take in everybody from every beephole country in the world. And then, of course, what the left does is they organize them to rise up against our culture and our civilization, don't they, George?
Yeah, they set up a little the whole fabric of the place. Lewiston and Auburn were kind of nice places, and the whole fabric changed after that. I mean, and I'm sure it's the same in Minneapolis. I've never been, but I can imagine.
Yeah, you'd be right. George, thank you for the call. And a nice Winnetka boy, Winnetka, Illinois, North Shore of Chicago. Must be a very fine person. Oh, Grassley Democrats. Did you see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying the next time they shut the government down, they're going to need to make sure that the American people suffer more, so the Democrats can get what they want. That's kind of a wild one, no doubt about it. And I just mentioned that the Democrat Al Green, not the great singer, but a member of Congress who's not a great member of Congress, Democrat Al Green has come up with an idea, and what happened is he stole my idea. It turns out he stole my idea years ago, but he continues to steal my idea. And I think he's a big dope. And boy, is he a big dope. He proved that he's a big dope. Here, listen to this. Now, I've been calling for this for years because the Democrats named in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill, there are 3 office buildings for the House of Representatives, right, on the south end of the Capitol, south of the Capitol building itself. And north of the Capitol building, there are 3 buildings for senators, right? Now, there are 435 members of the House, 3 buildings, 100 members of the Senate, 3 buildings. And one of the Senate buildings was named long ago for a racist, segregationist Democrat from Georgia named Richard Russell, who was a Democrat, perfectly mainstream Democrat, racist, segregationist, horrible person. They're the party of the Confederate States of America and slavery and the bullwhip and all that. And they named the building the Russell Senate Office Building. I've been there 100 times or more. And the RSOB, Russell Senate Office Building. And it's named for this Democrat from Georgia, Richard Russell, a horrible racist, segregationist who was against integrating schools, as all Democrats were. Look at Governor Orville Faubus at Central High in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957. Look at Governor George Wallace in Alabama. The Democrats are the party of racist segregation. They still are, too. They have, graduation ceremonies on college campuses today separated, segregated by race because they're racists, is the thing about them. But then they named the Russell Senate Office Building after Richard Russell, Georgia Democrat senator, who was there forever. And I have been arguing for well over a decade now that they need to strip the name of Richard Russell, a Democrat, racist, white, segregationist Georgia senator, need to strip that name off the building. And I've been saying for just as long, they need to rename it the Revels Senate Office Building, because Hiram Revels, H-I, not H-Y, H-I-R-A-M, Hiram Revels, was the first black guy to serve in the U.S. Congress. And he did so shortly after the Civil War, which the Democrat Party started because they wanted to keep slavery, because they're the party of slavery. But Hiram Revels became the first black guy to serve in Congress, and he served in the Senate, not in the House of Representatives, went right to the Senate. And so I've been arguing for, a decade and a half or so, that they should strip the name of the racist Democrat Richard Russell off of the Russell Senate Office Building, and they should rename it after Hiram Revels. He was a Methodist minister in the African AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, and a college administrator. He was born free in North Carolina and lived in Ohio and all kinds of great stuff. But in any case, he became the first African-American to serve in either house of the U.S. Congress. And Hiram Revels was, of course, a Republican, because what else would he be? I mean, come on, for the love of, isn't it amazing? And he was also Secretary of State, the state of Mississippi, United States Senator from the state of Mississippi, and that is because at the end of the Civil War, and he went into the Senate in 1870, and as I'm sure that you all know, the American Civil War, the Democrats were defeated by the Republicans in 1865, thanks to Republican President Abraham Lincoln, the Emancipation Proclamation, and all that. And then the Democrats, of course, murdered him by shooting him in the head at a theater in downtown Washington, D.C., the first Republican president ever. But Hiram Revels served as United States Senator from Mississippi, and he didn't serve forever. He served from February of 1870 until March of 1871. So what is that, 15 months or 14 months or something like that as a U.S. Senator. But nevertheless, and he was a member of the Mississippi State Senate as well. But he's the perfect person to, once you strip the white racist Democrats' name off of it, you can put the first black man to serve in our Congress, and it was in the upper house, the Senate, not the lower house of the House of Representatives. And he was, of course, a Republican, because what else would he be? The Democrats were just defeated in the American Civil War because, the plantation and all that stuff. But now Al Green, the Democrat member of Congress, the Hill has the story, the newspaper in Washington. Democrat calls on Senate to remove Russell's name from Senate office building. Yeah, well, I've been doing that for more than a decade. And listen to this. The guy's such a dummy, Al Green. He's like, who should we name it after? I don't know. Well, how about the first black guy to serve in the Senate? How about that? Hiram Revels. But Al Green is too much of a racist to do that. He's a black guy. He's a Democrat. Democrat Representative Al Green of Texas called on the Senate to remove the late Senator Richard Russell, Democrat Georgia's name, from one of its office buildings, citing the latter's segregationist views. The latter, that'd be the only one we're talking about. Richard Russell. Green, in a letter to every senator, said the name, quote, sends a powerful signal about the kind of leadership and principles our country holds in high esteem. Yeah, the Democrats hold racists in high esteem and always have, and they still do. Let's have racially segregated college graduations, college dorms, Christmas parties, everything else. These symbols should inspire a vision of liberty and justice for all. So that he's Superman. Not the glorification of a person who fought to deny basic rights to millions of Americans and to entrench white supremacy in our democracy. Hey, they didn't capitalize the word white there. That Al Green said there. Russell, who served in the U.S. Senate from 1933 until his death in 1971, rising to Senate Dean and President pro tem, opposed integration and the civil rights movement. He called the 1954 Supreme Court decision, Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education, Brown v. Board, which overturned the longstanding separate but equal principle in public schools, a flagrant abuse of the judicial power and a violation of states' rights. There he was in 1954, the Democrat senator, and they're like, hey, let's name a building after him. The Georgia Democrat, they finally got around to that. Georgia Democrat, along with his fellow Southern senators, also drafted the Southern Manifesto, which said the South would utilize the legal tools at its disposal to overturn the landmark decision. Brown v. Board, racially integrating schools. But never mind that. Before the 1964 Civil Rights Act passed, Democrat Senator Richard Russell, I'm adding a couple of words, spoke against it. And he did that on the Senate floor. After it passed, he urged all people to comply with the law of the land. Yeah, but then, after Richard Russell died in 1971, the Senate voted 99-1 to rename what they then called the Old Senate Office Building. It's the first of the three Senate office buildings, and it was always known as the Old Senate Office Building. In his honor, in the honor of Richard Russell, the next year, right, the Senate voted 99-1 to name the Senate Office Building after this well-known racist, segregationist Democrat from Georgia, right, with only Democrat Senator Philip Hart of Michigan in opposition. Hart said at the time, I thought we had learned that it would unwise, I think they means would be unwise, to anticipate history's verdict of Richard Russell. Sure. Al Green, has called on the Senate to rename the building multiple times, including this past June, also in February of 2022 and July of 2020. He must have been listening to my radio show. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, New York Democrat, introduced a legislation calling for the building to be renamed in honor of the late Senator John McCain after John McCain's death in 2018, where I had already been calling for it to be renamed for Hiram Revels, since you're stripping the name of a racist Democrat off of it. Put the name of the first black to serve in Congress, and he is, of course, obviously a Republican, because that was before the Democrats had secured total information dominance in the United States. Al Green's latest request asked the upper chamber to restore the building's original name, the old Senate Office Building, until it finds a worthy successor. Now, again, here's Al Green, not the brightest knife in the constellation. And for years now, he's been saying, we need to rename Richard Russell's Senate Office Building because he was a racist. And he still hasn't come up with the first black guy to serve in Congress who served in the Senate. But never mind that, because he's not so bright. Man, oh, Manischewitz, I am telling you, the Democrat Party, brains, not their thing. That's for sure. A worthy successor. All right, hey, Green, Al, I've found a worthy successor. His name is Hiram Revels, and I think he's your guy. But he won't be because he's a Republican and he's a racist, and he's a tin pot dimwit, Al Green is, and he can't sing at all. This clarion call is not an attempt to erase history, yeah, sure, but an effort to ensure that our prominent public spaces reflect our best ideals, not our darkest actions. Well, then nothing should be named for a Democrat anywhere. Let's start with that, because the party is the source of the river on all evil in America for centuries. But never mind that. Continuing to honor racist Senator Russell in the very halls where he obstructed civil rights legislation is an affront to all who believe we cannot glorify racism. But the Democrats have been doing it for decades and decades now. It's long past time for the Senate to remove this racist symbol of national shame. This reminds me, remember when Nancy Pelosi was being the Taliban and taking down statues and paintings, portraits all over the Capitol when she was Speaker of the House? And every filthy one of them, and it was all because they were racist, and every single one of them taken down was a Democrat. And the news media universally missed that interesting point because they're not on our side.
But let me state a simple fact. All the statues being removed by this bill are statues of Democrats. Madam Speaker, as I heard the Speaker talk earlier about removing of the 4 portraits of speakers in the hall, the same answer goes for that as well. They were all Democrats.
There's old Kevin McCarthy. He was Speaker of the House for a while. He couldn't speak very well, but he was Speaker of the House, a little bit of an affirmative action thing. Perfectly nice guy, though. And he pointed it out. And Pelosi was wearing kente cloth and dropping to her knee to praise a career criminal that died of cardiac failure while resisting arrest because of all the fentanyl in his system. Nancy Pelosi is brain damaged, except when it comes to trading stocks, in which case she's very, very smart. So there we have that. All right, Michael, let's grab a phone call. Let's go to Marianne, calling from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. Marianne, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Chris. Thank you very much. I'm still laughing at you saying Al Green can't sing. And Nancy Pelosi. I thought it was interesting regarding your talk on the Somali situation. I thought I'd like to add, and I'm sure you already know this, but I watched this podcast. I've been following what's going on in London and in Ireland, and it's very, very bad with migration out of control, and crime has risen, and it's going to come here unless we do something about it. So I'm proud of President Trump because I think he's doing a lot of right things, even though they seem harsh. It's almost like a necessary evil. But anyway, regarding the Somali situation, this podcast I've been watching out of London is called 2CTV, and the host, the broadcaster, is Iranian. He's from Iran. He's an authentic Persian. Not all Iranians are Persians, but he's Persian. He's not a Muslim. He converted, and he's very much into assimilation and is not shy about speaking out about Muslims not assimilating. But anyway, he was talking the other night about a situation in Sweden where a school board member embezzled $100 million in Sweden out of the school system, and they figured out that he was transferring that money overseas into other countries that support jihadis. And he said right then and there, and because he's Iranian, I think he maybe has a better opinion about things. He said this kind of thing will happen because they will take advantage, as they are doing here in the United States, a lot of people. And it's sad for the good people that are happy to get an opportunity and to get out of bad situations in other countries. It's not good for them. But anyway, he said it has to be nipped in the bud or they'll take advantage. And Sweden is practically ruined because they took advantage of the Swedes because they were nice people.
That's right.
And
that's right.
That's what I think that's, unfortunately, what President Trump is doing has to be done or we will be overrun. And we can't forget the spirit of our forefathers, which is no taxation without representation. And apparently what the Somalis in Minnesota were doing was nobody was watching the till. Nobody was watching where the money was going. Mm-hmm. Governor Walsh, I don't know what he was up to, but
right.
So anyway, I just thought I'd add that.
Well, and I'm glad you
Somalis.
did. Thank you for calling in, Mariana. It sounds like a good and worthy documentary out of England. And I tell you, my best girl and I, on one of our sea cruises a couple of years ago, we were in Stockholm in Sweden, went to the parliament, and the parliament was surrounded by men from Afghanistan sleeping in rows outside of the parliament because they had a list of demands, very expensive demands, that must be handed over and all that. And it's true, the Somalis in Minnesota. Texas is up against it now with mosques growing by leaps and bounds every week and pushing for Sharia law in villages. And, a lot of Muslims don't move to the United States to assimilate and become part of our great project, but to tear it down and destroy it. And by the way, the nice lady that you spoke to calling in, Jasmine, is from a wonderful, great Persian family. And her whole American family is a great American family. It's true. The Persian culture is an amazing and great culture. It's the Ayatollahs that create the problem. Marianne, thank you. All right, let us return to the telephones. Let's go to Joyce, calling from Houston, Texas, the planet Houston. Joyce, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chris, I heard you mention reparations. Well, let me say this. I am a 92-year-old black American, not African, black American, and nobody owes me anything. Nobody owes me reparations. And I've heard it recently. People are sitting back waiting and saying, we are owed, because we are black, we are owed reparations. I fail to understand how. Nobody kept anything from me during slavery. So how? I'm a common sense black. Mm-hmm. So how do they owe me anything today? And how could it be dealt out fairly? Because blacks sold blacks into slavery. Blacks, if you don't know that. It wasn't all white doing it. It was blacks also. So there is no way it could be dealt out fairly. So I get so tired of hearing that because I'm black, somebody owe me something. Nobody owe me anything because I'm black. And you know what I say about reparations? I say it's rape a nation. So, to my black brothers and sisters, stop sitting back whining about somebody owe you something from slavery. Because let me tell you, blacks, if it would come a law, and it would happen.
You are wonderful.